Hey y'all, welcome back to this series where we are going to ask 3 questions to a particular text or passage of Scripture. There is a challenge, there's a limitation, there are boundaries, and there are goals in doing this. So let me relay the groundwork for you. In each one of these videos, we're going to take a particularly dense passage of Scripture, sometimes ones that have multiple interpretations, and we're going to read the text and just ask 3 questions. That doesn't mean there are usually only 3 questions to ask. The 3 is an intentional limitation. We're just going to keep it at 3 so the thing doesn't run away with us, so it doesn't become too intimidating. And because there are obviously going to be more questions than just the 3 I'm going to focus on, chances are you'll have some of your own. So I think it really does reveal to us how we read Scripture, maybe what our biases or our own self-imposed or subconscious limitations are. When we stop asking questions, when we think we have the answers. So let me be clear. I am going to ask questions of this passage and not pose any solutions or any answers. Even if I think I have some answers, even if in years past I've gleaned several ways to view this or interpret this, even if I know what a particular tradition would say about this particular passage and its meaning, that's not the point. This is not a Bible study. This is not an exegesis. This is an opportunity for all of us to be a little more honest and have a deeper integrity and humility about what we don't know and what we're curious about. If we can identify more readily what we're curious about, what we wonder about, I think it will make us more attentive and better readers. And again, I don't know what your approach is to studying Scripture, but mine is it's a very long process over a long period of time. I don't believe reading the text, reading some footnotes, reading some commentaries provides all the answers. I think there's more work to it than that. It's kind of like gardening. You have to till the soil, prepare the soil, do the planting, do the watering, the nurturing, and do the reaping. There will be a lot of weeding in between, and just because you made it through one season, you need to do it again next season and next season and next season. The goal isn't to have a beautiful garden for one season. It's to keep that garden functioning well by walking in concert with God and His ways. So all that to be said, our passage today is going to come from 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 17 through 22. For it is better, if it is God's will, to suffer for doing good than for doing evil. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. He was put to death in the body, but made alive in the Spirit. After being made alive, he went and made proclamation to the imprisoned spirits, to those who were disobedient long ago when God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was being built. In it, only a few people, 8 in all, were saved through water. And this water symbolizes baptism that now saves you also, not the removal of dirt from the body, but the pledge of a clear conscience toward God. It saves you by the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at God's right hand, with angels, authorities, and powers in submission to him. These are the true words of our eternal God. I don't know about you, but when I hear that passage, that's a rather strange passage. I have lots of questions about that passage. For the most part, First Peter, the first letter of Peter, reads a lot like it is a meditation, an explanation, and an encouragement to churches, to the faithful, on how to suffer and maybe why there is suffering. So in the days of the early church, when so many people are suffering so many things from the hands of the government, from the religions, and even the religious leaders that are around them, from neighbors, from co-workers, because there was so much tension going on, it makes sense that apostles would write to their fellow believers and give them encouragement. It's okay that you're suffering. You're not doing anything wrong because you suffer. And clearly, this passage seems to start in line with that overall theme of suffering. That is what verse 17 says. It is better, if it is God's will, to suffer for doing good than for doing evil. And then Peter holds up Jesus as the example of someone who suffered for doing what is good. It says in that next verse, for Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. So there are these reversals. Christ is not unrighteous, but he's suffering for you who are an unrighteous person. Christ is suffering for sin, even though he himself is sinless. He is put to death in the body, but made alive in the spirit, whatever that means. There is this continuing idea of reversals, right? The body died, but his spirit is remaining alive. And as a matter of fact, whereas he doesn't belong to the realm of the flesh, to the realm of sin anymore, through death, he is in the realm of the Spirit, and therefore a lot of the New Testament writings about walking in the Spirit, living by the Spirit, being sealed by the Spirit, all of those things seem to be reflected in this nod to the Spirit. I can kind of follow a lot of that. It's deep, it's quirky, it requires a lot of nuance and a lot of thought, and maybe a lot of tradition and study and just thinking through things. But then it takes a little bit of a turn where still speaking about Jesus, it says, after being made alive, he went and made proclamation to the imprisoned spirits. So that's my first question. Who in the world are the imprisoned spirits that are being referenced here? The thought repeats and unpacks itself a little bit, although I don't feel like I get any clearer answers. It says, to those who were disobedient long ago, when God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was being built. I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, we can go back and we can look at the account of Noah in the building of the ark. And there's a couple of different things that we read in that passage. We read that human beings were prone to evil and violence all of the time and were very displeasing to God. So are those imprisoned spirits all of the people of that generation who were just leading desperately wicked and anti-God, anti-gospel lives? What's curious is also right before that, there's this little section at the beginning of Genesis 6 that talks about the Nephilim. And when the sons of God went down to the daughters of men, and some people interpret that phrase, sons of God, as it's used elsewhere in poetry, as angelic beings. So there's this huge question about what were angelic beings doing with the daughters of men? What did that have to do with the days of Noah? What is this race of giants? Are the giants the imprisoned spirits? Are the angelic beings, if indeed that's what it means by sons of men, the angelic, are they the imprisoned spirits? I don't know what to make of that. All we know is a time period that it's during the days of Noah, while God is waiting patiently for the ark to be built. And the fact that they're called imprisoned spirits, they're not called people, that just raises the question even more, right? My next question is, what is this proclamation that Jesus made? Again, it seems like the beginning of this passage is about suffering like Christ did. And then you get this weird churn. He put to death in the body, made alive in the spirit. That then links us to these imprisoned spirits where he went and made proclamation. Well, what proclamation did Jesus make? Where are we supposed to find that in the biblical witness? I know some people have developed entire theologies about what Jesus did, going and pronouncing to people that because they didn't believe in him, perhaps, that they don't have the right to be raised with him in the resurrection or to be part of God's kingdom. But that's a theology made out of silence. I don't know what to do with that, because it tells us he went and made proclamation to these spirits, but it never tells us what that proclamation was, and it certainly doesn't connect to his sufferings, at least not in an obvious way. And then my third question is, what exactly does it mean when it says, baptism now saves you? This is a highly contentious point based upon people's theological traditions of what baptism is. There are some traditions that would say baptism is necessary for salvation. There are some people who would say baptism is just an outward symbol for an inward reality. Unless you have the inward reality of true belief in God, you don't have actual salvation. The water baptism does nothing for you. But this is such a confusing statement. Talking about in the days of Noah, 8 people were saved through the water. That's the people who were in the ark. And this water now symbolizes baptism that now saves you also, not the removal of dirt from the body, but the pledge of a clear conscience toward God. It saves you by the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at God's right hand. What does that mean? What's the connection between baptism and the resurrection of Jesus? What kind of salvation are we talking about? And how exactly is that connected to the days of Noah? Because in the days of Noah, water is there as a form of God's judgment. The waters of baptism don't seem to be presented as a kind of judgment against us as much as they are presented as a kind of salvation. So those almost seem almost antithetical to use in the same idea. Those are just some of my questions. I don't know. Have you ever read this passage? Have you read it recently? If so, how many of my questions are similar to your questions? And if you could only pick 3, would the 3 questions that you have be different, even if 1 or 2 of them are different? What would the differences be? What different questions would you ask? You are free to put your comments in the comment section below. Again, I'm not looking for you to answer questions. I'm not saying that I don't have some ideas or haven't wrestled through these in different ways in the past. I'm not looking for us to come to a consensus on this. I'm looking to see if we can ask some questions together And if so, what would your questions be? I'm also going to link down our previous video. This is our second one in this series. The previous one came from 1 John. If you'd like to work through those 3 questions and ask your own 3 questions, you can go and watch that video as well. But keep asking questions. And until we meet again, may you continue to be curious. May you continue to be humble. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.